camera is on.
Welcome to Nights at the Round Table, a round table discussion on speculative fiction books and film. Hi everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Nights at the Round Table. Today we are discussing A Wizard of Earthsea, by Ursula Le Guin. I'm sitting at the table with Caro Fréchette. Oh, can't speak today. I'm leaving that in. And so we're going to start with general impressions of the book. Caro?
So I'm not gonna lie, I put the book in the bowl because it's one of my favorite books of all time.
Okay. So I loved this book. I found the ending a bit meh. The climax of the book was not, but it was beautifully written. I love the language of this book. And it was a really easy, really quick read. And I really enjoyed it. So yeah, worth the read. Why is it your favorite book of all time?
So, I'm a person who's dealt with mental illness for most of his life, and I had a lot of anger issues as a youth as well.
You too?
I don't know why, right? This book deals with, this book is an allegory for mental illness, because it deals with being so terrified of something that's inside of you and feeling like you have absolutely no control over it. And the only way that you actually can move past this fear and move past this, stop running and get better with your life is to actually recognize that this is part of who you are, and you need to work with it. You need
to turn around and face it first of all.
But also embrace it. The embracing part was extremely significant and important for me.
Yeah. I actually, when reading this book, I finished it Friday night, didn't even pick up on that. But now that you've mentioned it, I'm like, yeah, duh, that's obvious. Duh. So what I did pick up on was I really did like that this creature that he summoned forth was something of his own making. Like, his biggest trouble in life was his own damn fault. And so he had to turn around and face it in order to fix it. So yeah, I really liked that.
And it wasn't even something of his own making, it was part of his own self.
Yeah, yes, as it ended up being. Yeah, that's true.
Spoiler alert, a little bit late.
When was this book published? I mean, it's been made into a mini-series, so even people who... Caro's like, oh.
No comments.
So how did you feel about the characters?
Ged has always been one of my favorite characters. He's very, very dear to my heart. There's this whole sort of brash excitement and wanting to know and do everything and not really thinking about the consequences that is something that I relate a lot to my own character, because I want to do everything and I want to learn everything, and then sometimes, I've made grievous mistakes because of wanting to rush forward a little too fast. So Gad for me was a very close to my own heart.
Really? That's funny, because in the first part of the book, when he was being a brash which is weird.
He was a prig, and I was a prig.
Yeah,
so...
well, you know what? So was I think. But reading it now, I found him entirely unlikable until he was humbled in a very big way.
Oh yeah. But just because he reminded me of myself doesn't mean I like the person that I was then. Mm-hmm. I just, I see my journey through his.
Oh yeah, that's fair. I mean, I totally get that need to prove yourself, because that was basically me. Well, sometimes it still is, depending on what I'm talking about or trying to get done. That need to prove yourself. I think it's something that a lot of young people have.
But also that distrust of authority and feeling like you're so powerful and limitless. Why should you not know about everything right away?
Yeah.
And that not understanding that there are consequences and that there are things that you're not ready to understand because you can't understand the consequences.
Oh, see, I never felt like that when I was younger. I just always felt like I could understand the consequences of stuff and stop treating me like I'm an idiot, please.
But that's it. That's like the anthem of youth.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that's true. I loved Vetch.
Oh my god. He was so awesome.
Wasn't he?
And such a great friendship between
Yeah.
the two.
Yeah. So this book is written in a very sort of telly kind of. It's like somebody has sat down and is telling you a story rather than showing you the story. For the style of writing, that's really, really effective. It does, however, mean that you're told that they have a really strong bond, but other than a few hints here and there in the telling of the story, you don't really experience it. And still, I was touched.
Well, I don't know. You know, there's a lot of decisions that Vetch makes for Ged that are really proof of someone who cares about their friend a lot.
The biggest proof was in that initial raising of this shadowy thing. Vetch was the one who ran towards Ged when he was being attacked, and everybody else ran away.
But he was also the one who believed him when the shadow was attacking, you know, other people and pretending to be Ged.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And he was the one who left his sister to go with him to find that.
Yeah. That was a really interesting, right, like, again, I think the climax was kind of meh. Could have spent a little more time on that. But I liked the idea that Ged was able to walk upon the shores of death. And then when Vetch tried to, he ended up falling into the ocean.
Yeah.
That was a really neat imagery that I kind of liked. That sort of... The split between this world and the next was really beautifully done, actually. Yeah. I
actually really enjoyed the climax, and it's one of my favorite moments in literature, actually, the whole, like, turning around, facing and embracing. And I know that it is told in a way that feels a little bit underwhelming, but it
could have been dug deeper into, I think. It felt rushed compared to the rest of the book.
It did, but at the same time, the book was so telly, like, this was just another... you know, aspect of it. And for me, I've always felt like getting better sort of thing is so gradual and so small, and that embracing thing is so, it's not like a big moment in real life. You know, it's made of tiny things. Well, sometimes it can be, and I mean, I've lived through a moment like this recently. Yeah. But most of the time, it's in every little thing that you do, and then getting better from a mental illness is very underwhelming in that. So for me, it was a good parallel. That's true.
It's not a giant one time confrontation, I guess. I don't know. I just would have liked to have known sort of like the emotional life a bit more in that final confrontation, rather than just saying they embraced. The end. Give me more. And it's a testament to the writing that I wanted more of that writing. I really love the style in which this is written. It's
there are 5 more books.
I did not know that. I'll be reading the rest of these books. Yeah, I love the style in which it was written. It's sort of like the books that for young people that have been published before. Yeah. I want to say like the 80s didn't talk down to their audience quite so much. There are words in there that's probably somebody of the age that's mature enough to read this kind of thing would have to look up. The style is sort of a little more formal, a little more complex. Mm-hmm. And I wish I had read it when I was a kid, because there would be like a book for young people that didn't talk down to me, and I wouldn't have been so disillusioned with literature for young people.
It deals with very, very adult themes for a children's book.
For a children's book. How did you feel about what's her face? When she changed into a seagull getting caught. I like how they dealt with the death kind of off screen, so to speak. Yeah. But then
you still got the
because you see the feathers in their claws and
Yeah. And also I can't remember its name right now, but Ged's little animal friend.
Oh, the Autak or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
I can't remember.
It broke my heart.
Oh, I know, when he found him in the snow, I'm like, no. I'm fine as long as you don't kill the pets.
I know. And he was such a good friend to him. Like, he brought him back to life, and it was a book that's made out of all the little things.
Yeah, that's true. Was there anything you didn't like about this book at all?
Honestly, no.
Nah.
It's such a it's. I've read thousands and thousands and thousands of books, and this is still among probably my top 3.
Really?
Yeah.
That's quite impressive. It's not among my top 3. I mean, I loved it. It was a great read. I'm not sorry that I spent all of 2 hours it took to reading it.
I mean, granted, there's probably a nostalgia element of it because I read it when I was 10.
Oh, there is that. Yeah.
So,
I mean, but even still, it is quite a worthy read. Like, I wouldn't turn my nose up at this book like I do with so many other young adult books. I'm such a snob.
it's also really great to see that, a book that has most of the cast is a person of color.
That's true. That it didn't strike me until the attack on the village. In the first, I don't know, a couple of chapters of the book, there's an attack on the village. And I'm like, these sound like Vikings.
Yeah.
That's great. And I did like that almost everybody was a person of color.
It becomes a little bit more obvious in the other books because they talk a bit more about the Carrière people.
Yeah.
Who are the pale people.
Yeah. So they're described kind of in very Aryan terms in this book. Mm-hmm. And everybody else has brown or black skin. Except for What's-Her-Face, who turned into a seagull and got eaten.
Yeah. That's okay. She turned into a seagull and got eaten.
And got eaten. Oh, wait. Spoilers.
How old is this book?
Yeah, I don't know. Hang on. When was it published? Things that I should have looked up before we hit film.
'68.
Okay.
So not long ago. I like how Sonia says, I don't like young adults. I'm such a snob. But if you go through all our videos, the past 5 or 6 young adults we've read, Sonia's like, I don't like young adults, but this one was good.
Well, the only one that really sticks out in my mind is the Becca Cooper series. Those were very good.
The thing is, young adult is kind of become its own genre, and there's very specific tropes attached to it.
Yeah, but I also have issues with the language used in most young adult books.
Yeah.
I honestly feel like it's condescension, like they wouldn't understand anything more complex. And when I was a young adult, that pissed me off. Like, I was mad about it.
Yeah.
And so I avoided it completely. I was reading Tolkien when I was 10 because I was so done with all the other things.
I was reading Donna Tartt when I was 12, which probably I don't recommend.
I don't know who that is.
She wrote The Secret History. It's this book about these college students who accidentally kill someone in a bacchanal.
Oh!
So awesome 12-year-old reading.
That's great for 12. Yeah, but that's what I liked about books that were not necessarily targeted at young people is they let me explore adult topics, but I was safe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And that's really what books are about. It's about exploring difficult things in a safe...
Yeah, like from the safety of your armchair or your bed or something. So yeah, I didn't like books aimed at my demographic when I was in that demographic. Mm-hmm. Generally speaking. But I guess it's gotten better since I was reading them because, the Becca Cooper series was amazing. And there have been a couple of other ones which were pretty good.
I think it's also up to the writer because the books that really endure are, like books like this that deal with, the death of several people, like serious injuries, mental illness, facing the consequences of your actions, guilt, depression.
Yeah.
And it's this tiny little children's book of fantasy.
Yeah. I really liked when Ged realizes who his true master is and comes back after turning into a falcon. And his master's like, well, I'm glad you know it now. And that's that. Yeah.
That relationship with that man was so amazing. I've had mentor figures and father figures, and it really touched me.
Yeah, and they didn't spend all that much time. Most of the time, you follow Ged on Rogue, and so you have what's his name?
The original?
Yeah, it begins with an O. You have that dude.
Ogian.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. At the beginning and sort of near the end.
Yeah.
2/3 of the way through the book. And he really is just that sort of quiet mentor kind. Yeah. Oh, that's another thing that I wanted to point out. The masculinity in this is not, except for when Ged gets all angry and needs to prove himself, which is a problem. It's the beginning of what could be his downfall. Yes. most of the time, it's not this awful toxic thing.
Exactly. People are allowed to have affection to one another.
Yeah,
People are allowed
yeah.
to have deep friendships.
Yeah.
And love.
Yeah.
Between men. That's not like, that's friendship or
Yeah, like brotherhood.
yeah, brotherhood.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed that about this. It wasn't like so many books with so many heroes, an awful toxic thing.
Well, that's something that Ursula Le Guin usually does very well.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a very good character builder, and she does explore the meaning of gender and, well, I mean,
Left Hand of Darkness.
Exactly.
Yeah. Although I found the language in this one very different from the language in Left Hand of Darkness.
It's not the same audience.
Oh, that's true. But normally writers will have the same style, and the styles this time were completely different.
They were, but think about Catwings.
Oh yeah, yeah.
She really knows how to speak to her audience.
She does, doesn't she? Yeah, that's quite impressive, actually. I've forgotten about Catwings.
But their hands were kind.
Oh, their hands were kind. Yeah, so I liked how these characters weren't caricatures, which is a trap that a lot of writers tend to fall into, and wasn't the case this time.
And it's not a story in which it is a story about psychology and about mental illness and all that, but you don't really get into that, exploring all of the characters' thoughts and feelings. You sort of have the story and you understand the characters because they're so very well written and three-dimensional that you don't need to spend 3 paragraphs explaining what they're feeling.
Yeah, it's a lot of that sort of expositionary thing is people trying to make their characters three-dimensional, but you can do it with a very few words. A very few words? Grammar, Sonia. You can do it with very few words, and it's done really well in this book. Again, the style is more telly than it is showy, which everybody these days will be telling you is the wrong way to write a book, but it really works for this. It's honestly, reading the book, I took so much delight in the language used.
Yeah.
That it felt like a natural story. Like I was sitting at a fireplace and some old biddy was telling a story of this wizard named Ged she had heard of. It was really cool.
Yeah, and the introduction and the little quotes from histories and the conclusion as well really help that because they situate the story in the world and the
broader history.
Exactly.
And,
exactly like a storybook.
Yeah. So it is telly. It's more telling than it is showing, but it works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's the way that this book should have been written.
Yes. Agreed. And the language is just delightful. It's one of the things that I loved about Stephen Erickson so much was his language use was delightful. It's the reason why I like Evan's writing so much, because his language is delightful. And I think in the service of story, people forget about things like rhythm and flow and the musicality of the written word. And it was all included in this book, and I loved it. It was a genuine delight to sit down and just watch those words across the page. I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. My favourite part of the book, actually, is the language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't have anything to add to that.
Oh, okay. Just yes. The language is delightful.
It is.
But that might not be everybody's cup of tea, I guess.
And if you like the language and if you are into audiobooks, Harlan Ellison recorded an audio version of this book, of him reading this book. Oh. And he is so perfect. Very, very engaging, and I cannot recommend it enough.
Okay, cool. I'll look out for the audiobook. They're expensive, though, audiobooks. Rightly so, because they're a production. But, yeah. I think that covers literally everything I wanted to talk about. Is there anything that you wanted to add?
I'm pretty sure I've covered everything, too.
Yeah. Okay, so you already know that, wasn't he? What?
Do not think that you'll be watching the Miyazaki movie or the miniseries and getting any sort of representation of what's in this book.
I haven't watched either, so sure, I'll take your word for it. Yeah.
You'll get spoiled for the book, though.
Yeah, but they do everything so ineptly that. Yeah.
90s fantasy. Pre-Lord of the Rings fantasy.
Yeah.
When fantasy wasn't taken quite so seriously as it should have been. That's a whole different rant.
Wait, is it taken seriously now?
In a lot of places, they're starting to take it seriously.
So is like Kazuo
They're
Ishiguro finally going to say that he's writing fantasy, or like Margaret Atwood, or
Margaret Atwood has dropped the speculative fiction as far as I know and has admitted that she's writing sci-fi.
Ooh. Well then.
Yeah, because they're starting to take it seriously. And there are, this is an aside, but I watched the video clips from the recent first annual Obama Foundation Summit, and they had a panel on the power of fiction. Yep.
Yes.
So, there's a lot to be said in fantasy and sci-fi and even horror, if it's not just torture porn horror that you could use. Yes. Yeah. So, final thoughts and star rating. I guess this is going to be a short episode.
Keeps being one of my favorite books. 5 stars.
5 stars?
Definitely.
Yeah.
This is a book I recommend to everybody, and like I brought 2 editions of the book because I own 2 editions of the book because I keep buying more of this book to give it away.
4 stars for me. I loved the book, but again, I wanted more from the climax. But that's a very small gripe, all things considered. It was a great book, great characters, and I will forever rant about how beautiful the language was. Did you want to pick the next book?
Yes. Ready Player One.
Ooh. I have not read this book.
You can borrow my copy.
Thanks.
I'm in.
I have enough ranting to do.
Okay, so the next book that we're going to read for next month is Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Yeah, that's the name I wrote down.
I didn't read it because I wasn't sure.
My handwriting is bloody awful. Okay, if you have any thoughts about The Wizard of Earthsea, do leave a comment down below or in the Goodreads group when I finally update it. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks very much, guys. Bye!
Don't forget to click the bell.
Oh yeah, the bell icon. If you want. Bye!
Yes.
Oh,
A
Wizard.
Wizard of
A
Earthsea.
withered. Withered. Diction is done with the tip of the tongue and the teeth. Let me try that again.